And two of our 3.5 guests, because we got David Lerner tomorrow, are here.
I'll tell him he's half a guess.
Kevin Davies is doing his best Zarkon impression by still being on the whatever motorway he's on. So I have Sue Adams and Michael Cule. Two of our 4 guests of honour. So I thought we'll start with Sue, because chronologically you knew Douglas before any of us, and before Michael. From a very young age, you knew Douglas.
Yes, from day one.
So
your day one or his day one?
My day one, because he's older than me.
All right.
So what was it like growing up with a brother, a big brother?
Tall.
He was very tall. One of the things I do remember is at school, I was at boarding school in Suffolk, he was in boarding school in Essex, and he used to send me these letters that used to be really, really thick, and they used to be full of total and utter rubbish. But really interesting rubbish. I mean, in his style of writing that we grew to love so much later on. And it became such a thing that whenever I had a letter from Douglas, the whole form used to say, "Oh, can we read it? Can we read it?" And I just wish I'd kept them.
So did he know about that? Did he know he had an audience?
Oh yes, and I think he played to that a bit.
So that like even when he was in his teens?
Well, yes, because his first printed piece of writing was for the Eagle. Yep. When he was about 11, I think. So that was his first printed article that he wrote. I've got no idea what it was about. I was only this high at the time. Well, yes. And also, from a writing point of view, of course, he was the only person that his English teacher, Frank Holford, ever gave 10 out of 10 for a piece of work that he handed in at school. And Frank, bless him, has always come along to all the DNA lectures and stuff and keeps in contact with us. But apparently Douglas was the only person he ever actually gave a 10 out of 10 to. So I think there was a bit of an inkling that he could write.
And an inkling he wanted to be a professional writer?
I think originally he wanted actually to be a performer. I mean, there is the famous saying that he wanted to be John Cleese till he realised that the job was already taken. I can remember also when he was at university in Cambridge, I was at college at Cambridge at the same time. It's rather nice having a brother 3 years older than you at college. And I used to go along to a lot of the rehearsals and stuff that they used to do, and so I got to hear of a lot of the reviews and things early on. And as we all know, he didn't sort of really take to footlights, and he did the Adam Smith Adams, and going into the rehearsals with some of those, I mean, how they ever got as far as the stage or to performance, I honestly don't know. There was one particular thing, it wasn't Douglas that did it, but I remember it was Will, and we were all sitting in Douglas's rooms, and you suddenly became aware of somebody walking up the stairs and then stopping and sighing, and there was a... And then this walking would start again, and this would go on for about 15 minutes until he eventually got to the top. And when we were all in the audience waiting for the review, and we were waiting, the curtains were down and we were all waiting, I think Douglas was the first one on, suddenly I just heard this, and I just burst out laughing, and everybody else looked at me as though I was completely mad because I knew what was coming. But obviously Douglas did more of the Adam Smith Adams at Cambridge.
Michael, your first Hitchhikers was the stage show,
Yeah,
the Rainbow Stage Show.
My connection with the whole thing starts actually before that. I went to University of Oxford, the other place. It is not true about the goat sacrificing. Outside of All Souls, it's not true. Anyway, and one of the people up there was Geoffrey Perkins, who played a very good custard in Lost Labour's Lost in my college gardens. I played one of the stuffy parts. And afterwards, we both attempted to make our careers in show business, and he very cunningly decided that the BBC was a better idea than striking out on his own. And I became aware that there was this thing called the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which he was somehow involved with, and I started listening to it and enjoying it. And I sort of hoped that when I left Oxford, that my connections amongst the great and good would find me immense amounts of work. This did not happen. Geoffrey Perkins did employ me once on Hordes of Things, playing a giant eagle. I did not get any of the funny lines. But eventually I ran across the fact that somebody, in a complete absence of judgment, had given Ken Campbell the directorship of the Liverpool Everyman Playhouse. Now, I don't know why a presumably sober, insane bunch of people that actually money to dispense trusted Ken Campbell with anything. But I wrote to him and said, could I come along for an audition? And I went along, and I sat down in the chair, and he looked at me and he said, "Hello, what part could you play in A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?" And I went, up. This wasn't in the briefing. And said, "Deep thought." "Oh, that's very interesting. No, I hadn't thought of having you on stage." "Well, neither had I, but I was prepared to wing it. And I winged it into the stage show at Rainbow, about which lunacy I should not say too much, as we've got a complete panel item about it tomorrow. Suffice it to say, it was, I'm going to say this again tomorrow as well. There's a thing called the actor's nightmare, which you get. It's a specialised form of those dreams you have where you turn up and you're at school again, and you're naked and you're doing an exam. Well, the actor's form of it is you are in a play and you have rehearsed the wrong play. For me, for some reason, I've rehearsed Shakespeare, and the rest of the cast is doing a musical, and I don't know what I'm doing. And what that was like. Honestly, I found myself. Actually, I'm coming all called sweaty now, just thinking about it. But at the end of it, and it was financially a disaster. I'm not going to say whether it was artistically a disaster. Some of you who were there can tell me how much of a disaster it was. At the end of that, I found myself, I got to sleep on Douglas's sofa for at least 3 days during that production, which indicates how organised it was. And at the end of that, I made it was 1980, and it was the year that there was going to be the television series. So what I did was, standing very close to a person whom I knew was going to be involved in the TV series, I said, there's one part I'd really like to have in the TV series, and that's the Vogon Guard. I don't know why I focused on that. It's a nice part, it's small, and it didn't seem to me that they'd cast anybody really important in it, so I might have a chance. So I said it very loudly, I really would like the part of... And this is how it works in show business. Apparently, I've been very bad at being able to reproduce this. I mean, having connections from university doesn't work, obviously, but being able to stand next to the person who's going to be making most of the kit and is going to be listened to by the director apparently works. And I only wish I'd been able to exploit it more. So I get the part in the TV series, and that leads me to, a certain low amount of fame, and to, I believe, a part in a programme which won the, what was it called, the Golden Rose of Montreux for that year. So that was my small bit of fame. I thought, this is it. This is my career on the up. I especially thought my career was on the up when, after that, I got called back by the director, nice chap, and he actually employed me a third time, which is a record for directors re-employing me, right? The third part was a terrible one, and he said, but that's irrelevant. And he said, "Michael, we've got this part of the bodyguard in episode 5, Hot Black Desiato's bodyguard. You did it at the Rainbow. and I got to do, so would you like to do it in the TV series? And I said, yes, money, fame, opportunity. And then my appendix exploded a week before the thing, and they gave it to Dave Prowse, who, bless him, I'm not envious, I'm not annoyed. And Dave Prowse got that part. I'm the guy who's going to tell you how to beat it. I'm the guy who's telling you to beat it before you get it beaten for you. And I'm not jealous. And I'm not envious, and that's the word I was looking. I am not bitter.
Okay, so Kevin's in the car park apparently. Oh, what's he doing in the car park?
Parking cars.
Yes.
It's with Marvin.
Silent fire-in-law.
So let's wind back a little bit. Douglas wrote a fair bit of Hitchhikers at your mother's and stepfather's house in Dorset.
That's correct. A lot of people don't actually realise that. And we've still got the stool. My sister, they've had the legs chopped off it, but they've still got the stool which my nephews sit and have their food off. There was this just makeshift. It was just a piece of board across the top and a stool, and that was Douglas's desk. And he used to look out of the window. Down the bottom of the garden, there was an old glove factory being demolished with bulldozers. And Mum would come in with cups of tea and peanut butter sandwiches in between Douglas's baths, and just swear about these bloody bulldozers down the bottom of the garden. And that's where it all began. And a lot of people don't realise, even a lot of people down in Dorset don't realise that. And we did the launch of a literary festival down there, which we did the exhibition for Douglas's work. And we put all this up there, and we had signs of Stourbridge. And the number of people that came in and said, we didn't know it was local, we didn't know. So I think there's been a few talks about trying to get a blue plaque, but I don't know.
So, I mean, he went through some low periods before he went back to Dorset to write that. I mean, and your mother and stepfather had two, so you had two younger.
I have two younger, yeah,
on that
Jane
side.
and James.
So they were like running around the house, causing Douglas's record player to skip, and he was trying to write Hitchhikers. What sort of mood was he in?
I wasn't around actually at the house a lot of the time then, because when he was writing that, I just got married and I was sort of setting up my own home and stuff. But I do know that he used to try things out on them. It's like Slarty Bartfast. He was trying to think of a word that sounded the rudest without actually being rude, and he used to practice them on Jane and James and get the reaction. And Slarty Bartfast got the biggest reaction, which is why he's using Slarty Bartfast. But Douglas had some very, very dark times. In fact, mostly harmless. He wrote when he was not in a good place, and that's the one book I have not read. I've never read it, and I don't want to read it because I just know what he was going through when he wrote it. But no, he did. He got very depressed at one stage, that he just, before Hitchhikers, that it just wasn't happening, like you were saying, Michael. You know, you have these marvellous ideas, but it just wasn't happening. And obviously, before Hitchhikers, he'd been involved with Monty Python, so he'd done some work with Graham Chapman. I think he was only the second person to ever get credited with writing material actually for Monty Python, which they just never normally let anybody in. Probably it's because he wanted to be John Cleese. And he used to, I mean, obviously he did the Doctor Who stuff and stuff as well, but he did get very depressed when things didn't happen, and at one stage he was going to give it all up, and he was going to go off to, was it Tokyo or somewhere? Hong Kong. And
become a shipbroker.
Become a shipbroker, because he said it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And then of course it did. And I can remember when it used to go out on the radio, the next morning my grandmother used to phone me up and say, can you explain it to me? I want to be able to talk to him about it. but I don't understand a word. So she used to get really quite upset that she didn't understand what the hell this programme was all about. And
So that was your mother's mother?
yes, that was,
So-
yeah.
So this was the Donovan?
Donovan, that's the one we grew up with and we lived with when we were children. We lived with Granny and Mum, and my father was somebody that I saw every so often who came around for tea when I was a child.
So Granny Donovan was the RSPCA woman in Brentwood.
Yes, she was. She was known as the woman with the dogs. She did have 8 at one stage, so that's probably a good description. And she used to go everywhere on a bicycle, and she used to have one of the dogs, a little Pomeranian, used to be sitting in the basket. No, she was quite widely known, especially for the RSPCA work that she did. And we had, as I say, this little Pomeranian when it got brought in by the police because nobody could handle this damn dog. It was going bananas. Yapping and snapping and everything else. I ended up on the table. Douglas was on the sideboard, and Mum was just walking around trying not to kick it, swearing her head off at it. Yes, Granny had a big part in our life growing up because our parents divorced when I was 2 and Douglas was 5.
So Michael, going back to the stage show. So Douglas was around a lot during that
He
period.
was rewriting stuff.
Yeah, writing it for something. So you were the original dish of the day.
Yeah, I think that arose out of a conversation about vegetarianism, which was happening between some of the cast, and whether it was hypocritical or not. And we had this conversation about whether you could have. I mean, my memory may be. I don't know. My memory may be inserting it backwards in time. I think there was a conversation about whether you could have an animal which liked to be eaten. And the next day, Douglas came in and shoved this at me and said, "Here, try this." I must admit that the costume for it, which was a pig mask and a very unfortunate shift, was not my favourite theatrical one. But it was a nice characterisation and a nice piece of work, and it was unexpected because, especially in the Rainbow, the audience sometimes knew the lines much better than the casting, and so they were pleased to get something new into it. He was reworking all of it all the time. It has to be said. Everything shifts and changes, and I think it's like not to be. I think it's like a Gilbert and Sullivan or maybe a Sondheim musical. It gets reworked to the latest idea from the author, or to fit the time it was played, or the circumstance it was being played to, using the base material. Can I ask you a question about that? This is purely a piece of egotism on my part, as I have to be up here. Was he a fan of the Alan Parsons project?
I'm afraid I don't know.
All right.
Sorry, that's not very helpful.
It's just I believe my memory says I came across a reference to the Alan Parsons project in one of his books, either Dirk Gently or one of the Hitchhikers books, and there's music playing in the background. My memory says it's Arthur talking to somebody, and the person said, and Arthur says, "Look, what is that music playing?" And the person says, "Oh, that's the X by the Alan Parsons project." I find it helps. It's a moment of, and I'm not been able to trace it since. Maybe I hallucinated the entire thing. I know, but who knows? And you don't know, so I don't know.
Sorry, I don't know.
So did you get to play Deep Thought?
I did get to play Deep Thought, but it was a Ken Campbell production, and so I did not do it in a manner which was entirely refined and didn't think at all, because it was Ken fucking Campbell. And excuse me, you sure don't want to? Are you sure you don't want to say this for tomorrow? But I found myself in a loincloth this time in the centre of the stage. My embarrassment factor, I think that production was quite large, especially when I was ended up in the bath towards the end. But hey.
So Big Thought, Dish of the Day, Zark one?
No, not Zark one. I can't remember what I was doing.
The B-Art Captain?
B-Art Captain. I was prosthetic Vogon gels, and they were still sewing my costume together. Well, actually, as it was inflatable, they were still sticking my costume together when I went on stage the first night. But
so that was the Rainbow, the TV series, you did the Vogon Guard.
yeah. And after that, I sort of hung about and did other stuff because I'm always available and I'm very cheap. I did. Excuse me. I shouldn't have done that voice. Port. Port. I did. What's his name? Mr. Prosser for when Kevin did
the illustrated guide.
Did the illustrated guide, and I did the Vogon Guard again in one of the later radio series. One of the.
So 2008, at the Memorial Lecture in 2008, they recreated episode 2 on stage, and you were the Vogon Guard.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I would like to point out that Dirk Maggs recently attempted to do a national tour by the Hitchhikers Guide, including many of the original members of the cast, and it did not include me.
Oh dear.
Now, I would like to point out at this moment in time that tour failed miserably.
Because you weren't on
Because I was not there. I am obviously.
Woo! There he is.
Holy softball!
Time is an illusion.
Talking about the 30th anniversary, up on stage, they were a bit nervous about it originally because they'd never sort of done this live, and obviously they'd always done it as the radio show.
Cheers.
And it was fantastic because as each of them came on stage and started talking, they got a really, really good cheer. And especially when Steve Moore came on and said, "I think you ought to know," the whole place just stood up and cheered. It was fantastic. But afterwards we were all having dinner, and Sue Sheridan came up to me and gave me a great big hug and said, "Thank you so much." And I said, "That's not me, this is Douglas and, Dirk and James had put this together." And she said, "No, but you were the one started just coming along to the radio shows," which I did. After Douglas died, I went along and used to just quietly go and stand and listen to them being recorded. And then slowly the whole family sort of got together. And she actually said that she didn't think that if the family hadn't have been there and been supportive, she's not sure that all of these things would have actually happened. So it was nice of her to say so. But they had a ball, which is obviously why they went on to do this really, really fantastic, well thought out and very popular and so successful radio live show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Zarquan.
Got your mic there. Got your mic.
Thank you. Hello, Sue.
Hi, Kevin.
All right, Dave. How's it going so far?
It was all right until you arrived.
Sorry. Lowered the tone and the atmosphere already. Hello, everyone. Who's travelled the furthest? Yeah, of course.
No, it really isn't actually. I'm second. They're in the bar, okay.
There's some of the Brazilians are in the bar.
Oh, right, you haven't met them yet.
So, you listened to the first radio series?
I did. I missed the first broadcast, but very fortunately it was repeated twice that year. And I was at a fellow Doctor Who fan's house, who I've been there for Sunday dinner, and the evening worn on, and he said, "Oh, well, before you go home, I'm going to listen to a radio programme, something on Radio 4." Well, I was not that keen. I was 17 and I had other business. And I went, "Oh, all right then. Well, what is it?" And he said, "Well, It's a sort of sci-fi comedy thing. It's supposed to be very good. He hadn't heard it either, but friends had told him. And said, and it's written by the bloke who wrote Pirate Planet, which had only just finished at that time. And I thought, oh, okay, because my friends and I rather rated Pirate Planet as being funny and a bit different and full of lots of ideas. So, all right, I'll give it a go. So we sat and listened to it, and that was it. I was hooked. And the next week, I started recording it and playing it at anybody that would listen at art college and everywhere else. So yeah, that was my first. I was completely overwhelmed right from the off. And then 2 weeks later, met Douglas. It was very strange. It was very.
So
it just went quick, very rapidly. One thing to the other.
Was that you interviewing him?
Yeah, it was TARDIS magazine. Was the magazine of the fanzine, E4 little fanzine of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society, which I joined a couple of years earlier, and I'd recently had my 17th birthday, and my mum and dad had bought me a new tape recorder, and I strongly suspect that when I was invited, they said to a friend at Red Hat, they said, "Would you like to come and help interview the new Doctor Who script editor?" And I said, "Yeah, all right, and you can bring your tape recorder." So I said, "Yeah, okay." So I went along to this thing, and the three of us interviewed Douglas, and the first sort of 6 or 7 questions were all about Hitchhikers, and he went, "Oh, you know about that?" Because it was so early on, And he'd just been made script editor 2 weeks earlier, hadn't really realised what he'd got himself into. And that was it. It all began from there. And 2 years later, I was involved in the TV version. So it was a very rapid thing. An absolute love affair right from the off.
Well, you were hanging around in the stage show, weren't you?
I was, but we'd already done episode 1 of the telly by then.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
So the telly was first and then the stage show?
Well, that stage show, The Rainbow, was on in the summer, and I had a 2-week sabbatical from the animation company to come and work on the stage show. And then we went back and we waited and waited while the BBC hierarchy decided whether it was funny or not. They put a laughter track on episode 1 just to sort of try and prove to a few suits that, yeah, this is funny.
So on the stage you were doing things like building the Dish of the Day costume?
Well, that was it. I was taken on. What was funny was there used to be a pub that all the Doctor Who, just the Doctor Who fans, all the Star Trek fans, the sci-fi fans, proper bookie sci-fi fans, used to go to this pub, the One Ton, on Saffron Hill near Farringdon Tube Station in London, on the first Thursday night of every month. And it had been a tradition, I think, that went back a couple of decades before.
It goes back as far as Arthur C. Clarke in the late 1940s.
They went to the White Hart.
The White Hart is a fictionalisation of the place they really went to, but his Tales from the White Hart is about those years, yeah. And but the One Ton, I remember the One Ton. God, it was a hell.
It was a horrible pub. It was a tiny little pub, and there were far too many people.
Well, yeah, I'm remembering the toilets, aren't I? Yes. All right. It's still going in a different location. I can't remember where at the moment.
I went to a friend's birthday party there a couple of years back, and it's all now football on the screens, and the staircase is gone. I don't know what they've done with the upstairs. It's like that Doctor Who episode. The stairs are just gone.
So maybe it was never there.
Working on the TV series, you did animations, but you also took your own video camera to do behind the scenes stuff.
Well, it wasn't my own camera. I wasn't that wealthy. I borrowed a wealthier friend's video camera and followed behind the scenes story.
Which led
to...
But
I was going to say about the One Ton, because it goes back to that. I'd already was working on the TV thing, and then at one of these regular pub meets with all the science fiction fans, two people I think came round. Something weird was going on. This guy came up and was handing out leaflets. Oh, that's it. We were going to show episode 1 at the NFT of Hitchhikers to record a laughter track. And so I was dishing out invitations around the pub, and Alan Bell and his wife popped in and hovered in the corner looking at all the weirdos. And we dished out the invitations. And there was another guy going around dishing out flyers for the Hitchhikers Guide to the Galaxy stage show, which nobody knew about. And it was imminent. It was like 2 or 3 weeks' time it was going to open at the Rainbow Finsbury Park. And this guy was John Joyce. If we'd have realised then, we didn't have access to the episodes, but Doctor Who fans would know him as the verger to Roger Delgado's master in the famous episode The Demons. And he was great mates with Ken Campbell. He wasn't in the play, but he was just helping Ken, dishing out flyers. And while he went round, we went, oh, Hitchhikers. Everyone got terribly excited. I'd been to the play at the ICA the year before.
Was it? It was good.
It was good.
I never saw it. Well, tell us about the play at the ICA.
The ICA, long story, I'm going to do half the weekend here, I reckon. The ICA stage play, I went with friends, otherwise I wouldn't have never got in. Some friends got some tickets at a party, said, does anyone else want to come? Yeah, so I jumped in. And it turned out that anyone who got tickets to that play was very lucky, because so many people were being turned away, because the audience seating was a little tiny, sort of a boxing ring affair, with a little sort of, like the ropes of a boxing ring around the edges, and just ordinary chairs in the middle. And the sets were built all the way around the theatre. It was a very small theatre space at the ICA, on the Mall, near Admiralty Arch, at that end of the Mall. Hover pads underneath this, and big hefty fellas would move the audience around to face whichever set was next. And so consequently, you can only fit about 60 chairs on this rostrum, so they could only do 60 in the audience per night. And really, they were turning away hundreds at the door, including Simon Jones, who couldn't get in. But I'm Arthur Dent, and they looked at him as if he was mad. But yeah, so I'd seen that play. So I was very excited when, a year later, they're dishing out these flyers. And this guy said, well, I come here tonight, knowing all the science fiction fans here. Is anyone here that we need some masks, some monster masks made? And my friend Susan Moore was there, and she was already making masks and winning lots of prizes at conventions. She hadn't done anything professionally yet, and we were going, go on Sue, and she was a bit reticent. It's unbelievable knowing her now. She was a bit reticent. So I jumped in, well, I do it, because I made some at college a couple of years earlier. I made a robot of death from Doctor Who. And the guy said, all right, and then my friend who'd been at college with me, Bianca, put her fella forward, John, my best mate from college, saying, John can make stuff too. Acting as agent, you know. We all jumped in on the bandwagon. It was like, yeah, we can make stuff. So we all went along to the Architects Association, down in the basement there, in Bedford Square, which is where Ed Victor's office is, just off it, Bedford Square. There was the Architects Association had like a workshop area. And for several days, a whole bunch of us were down there sculpting things, making ray guns and props and alien fruit for milliways, you know, for the displays of the banquets and whatnot. And all sorts of things were being made. And I sculpted Vogons, and Susan eventually came out of her shell and joined in and started painting all the masks and things and alien fruit. A friend of mine, John, he made the electronic thumb, and some other bits and pieces. And then we had two incidents. One with Mike, where I first met Mike, was when the Ken came in and said, we've got a new scene, and thrust a bit of paper at us. Douglas had written a new scene, and he wanted, I'd already done the Vogon fitting with you, but overnight, 2 nights before the opening night of the play, he'd got this scene, The Dish of the Day, which was all brand new. Like, it had never been in any version before.
I learned it.
You did it.
I learned it. God, how did I do that? I remember being learned stuff.
Well, you played about 12 parts.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did that.
Did you get paid? I ask this purely in a sense of bitterness.
I'm afraid I did. I was one of the very few that actually managed to get our money. You know.
Yeah, they did. Did they really depart for South America?
Well, I don't know. Douglas reckons so. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he bumped into somebody once who lost a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
He was wearing dark glasses. But it wasn't Douglas's fault. I mean,
No. It was the producers.
Yeah.
It was just a madness. But
A lot of the money backstage was going up people's noses and out the door. It was a pretty wild.
Save some material for tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll tell you the full story of that one. Yeah.
But I.
Did you go, Sue? Did you come and see those plays? No? It was all still kind of Douglas doing stuff elsewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people used to say what it was like having a famous brother, and I said, when he was alive, he was just my brother who happened to have a job that put him in the limelight, that did all these things. And, you know, the rest of us were living our own lives. I mean, and I, as I said earlier on, I got married in '76, and I was setting up my own home and everything else. So, you know, I used to hear about these things and see things and catch up with things when I saw Douglas, but I didn't sort of get heavily
You had
involved
your own
in.
fish to fry.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he was doing a job. I was doing my job, he was doing his job. He just happened to make a lot more money than I did.
Well, we're very grateful for everything he did do, because it gave us interesting jobs to do, and you know.
So the title of this is Hitchhikers and Me. Where would you be without Hitchhikers?
I don't know. It's funny actually. I was saying something about this, preparing things for this weekend, and talked to my wife, who's been there right from the off, who was I was at school with. So she remembers me discovering Hitchhikers, and she patiently went through it all, and she likes the people involved, she likes the actors, and she likes being, but she's not a die-hard fan of it in that sense. She doesn't know it inside out, but she's had to put up with it for years and years and years while I rant and rave. So I think, I don't know what my life would have been if I hadn't, you know, happened to hear that radio show and then happened to meet Douglas right at the point just before he got mega famous. He actually, in that first meeting, he said, oh, I've got this to do, that to do, they want another version, there might be a cartoon version, BBC were thinking about doing an animated version at that point. And they said, oh, and then I've got this book to do, if only I can finish the bloody thing. And it's like, if you'd known, you look back on it and hear that tape recording, you think, Douglas, just stop everything else, just get that book done. Because his life changed at that point.
He found writing the books incredibly difficult.
Well, I've got real evidence of that for Sunday at 2:00ish. We're going to have some treats from the archive that nobody's ever seen before. And part of the story is his struggle with the material. And it's very funny and it's very sad and very poignant at times. But, you know, he struggled for our entertainment.
Definitely did. It's very ironic that we became actually more involved really as a family with Hitchhikers after he died. As I said, I used to go along to the radio shows, and that's where we got to know all the cast, and then they did the 30th, and then they did the tour. And the movie, I did actually make £76 out of Hitchhikers as an extra in the movie. If you blink, that is my claim to fame of being on the I'm a movie star.
Douglas must have treated you occasionally.
Oh yeah, I mean
what's the most extravagant thing that you ever got involved in with Douglas then?
Well, there was one time I remember, I mean, obviously, I'm just so grateful that I had those 3 months with him out in America, which was just fantastic. I used him as a base in a laundry shop while I went and did a lot of travelling around, and I'm just so thankful that I had that time with him. But one of the things that really sticks in my mind, in case anybody doesn't know, he liked the Apple computer. And he and Stephen Fry were always having an argument about who had the first and the second iMac in the UK. Douglas liked to think that he had the first and the second, but he then said no, Stephen could have the second. and obviously he was heavily involved with Apple and was an Apple master. And there was one Christmas we were up in Duncan Terrace, and he gave us all a little label with a coloured string. I had one, my brother and sister-in-law had one, my sister and brother-in-law had one, Mum had one, and we all had to go and follow this bit of cord all the way around. It went in and out of banisters, around furniture, up and down stairs, and at the end of each one was an iMac.
Wow.
Which was just brilliant. Mum was slightly confused because she'd never sort of had anything to do with computers, didn't know how to use a QWERTY board or anything else. But Douglas had great patience in setting it up for her and showing it how, and we've got some fantastic pictures of him showing Mum how to use a computer. So that was one of the things. And the other thing about Douglas was he gave bloody good parties. And we were very lucky to go along to some of those, which obviously ended up in I think there was a bit of a party in the Apollo, wasn't there? There something happened?
At the Apollo?
Yeah, 60th virtual party.
Douglas's virtual 60th. Did anybody go to that?
Hey.
Yeah,
a good,
brilliant.
strong contingent there.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that was great. But you had a party afterwards, did you? I think.
Oh, yes.
We were all so exhausted, we just went home, I think.
Well, we'd actually had some auctions for some tickets and stuff. Did anybody go in for the auction, or did you just buy your tickets? You bought them, obviously. And for the people that had auctioned and the tickets, got the auction tickets, they were able to come for the day and spend the time, and I'd show them round, go to backstage, meet some of the cast, which actually didn't really happen because the musical set took all the rehearsal time. Yeah, lovely Dave Gilmore. Sorry, David. David, we're not allowed to call him Dave. And a couple of these people, they'd also been allowed to come up to the VIP party afterwards. And one of them came up to me and said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "We feel as though we have been invited to a very special birthday party, almost in someone's rather large, but in somebody's front room." She said it was a party, and we said that's what we were striving for, because Douglas loved parties and he loved giving them. And the fact that this was able to be just one big party was fantastic. I think it took us quite a few months to recover from it. I mean, 14 tap dancing rhinos with Daleks on stage and the band at the end. Well, I mean, to get the likes of Robbie McIntosh, Paul Wickens, Gary Brooker and David Gilmore as the house band was just phenomenal. And it's something that's going to live with us for a long time. And we have actually, yes, got all the tapes somewhere.
Well, I have mentioned it just recently to Dirk, saying I know that James has got
them all.
The hard drive with all
Yeah.
the HD. There was about 5 HD cameras on that show, so there is a proper recording. But I also had 2 little DV cameras separately, and I also got another friend in to man another camera up in the balcony. So I've got it in a kind of low res version.
So you never know.
But the clearance involved, because everyone gave their time for nothing, the clearance involved was really, well, nobody's even dared to try and do it. Somebody, I'm sure there's a lot of goodwill, I'm sure for the right reason. I think since we didn't have a Douglas Adams Memorial Lecture this year, being as next year is the 40th anniversary, we really ought to do something to mark that next March with a memorial lecture, that has some kind of...
Yeah, we didn't do a lecture this year because, as some of you will know, Mum sadly died last year, and it was just something we couldn't cope with doing this year, so we decided to give it a break and then come back stronger and better next year.
And if not next year, then maybe 2 years later when it'll be the 42nd birthday.
Oh, it's going to be the 42nd, come on. I mean, that was Douglas's 42nd Sorry, we're going off Hitchhikers here. Sorry, Dave. Douglas's 42nd birthday present from David Gilmore was to get up on stage at Earl's Court and play Brain Damage, because Douglas was a bit of a frustrated rock star. And at the rehearsals, it was great fun because he always finished about 2 bars ahead of everybody else. And we got so nervous and so worked up about it. And we'd all gone along to this, and we were in David's box, you know, chilled wine and everything else. And we were saying to Mum, this isn't how you normally go to a rock concert. You're normally down there with the plebs. And anyway, just before the interval, Douglas came up on stage and started, and Mum was jumping around, waving her jacket. And we said, Mum, he can't see you. I don't bloody care, that's my son down there. And the people in front were sort of wondering who this lunatic was, leaping around in the box behind. And then after the interval, when Douglas came back into the box, they realised, you know, that who this mad woman was. But yeah, Mum did sort of get used to going to some pop concerts in ways that you wouldn't normally go. Backstage, get to meet them, VIP, yeah.
That was the thing about Douglas. He was liked by the musicians. I interviewed Stanley Unwin once, and he was made friends with the Beatles and things like that. And he said, "Musicians dig me," and I think that was true of Douglas too.
What was very strange, we went to a Paul McCartney concert. A bit of name dropping here, sorry. And we were backstage, and there'd been a couple of fans, and you could see them sort of saying, "Do you think we could go up and talk to him? He's here with his family and his friends. Do you think we, And they did, thankfully, in the end, and Douglas was great. And about half an hour later, one of Douglas's great musical heroes was Elvis Costello, and he was there, and Douglas was sort of saying, "Do you think I should go and talk to him? Do you think he'd mind?" And it just seemed so bizarre that here was this person worried about talking to his hero, one of his heroes, when literally half an hour earlier, a couple of people had been saying, shall we, talking about their hero. So, but he was one of the things about Douglas was he was a great sharer. He loved sharing his time, his energy. He was a great supporter of people if they had a new idea or wanted to do something but wasn't quite sure. He was a great champion of people, and bless him, he was an incredible, generous person.
So we've had some great stories, so I haven't really left very much time for questions, but if anybody does have a question for any or all of our panel, or you just want to happy letting them talk. So, sorry, Karen?
Kevin, were you responsible for Mike's loincloth?
You still wearing it?
I've changed his
no.
cloth from time to time.
Let's put it this way, for the mask I had to take a mould. I didn't have to take a mould for a loincloth. That might have been fun, I don't know.
A bit late saying that now, isn't it?
Alex, you had one?
The story Frank Halford gave 10 out of 10 to Douglas, does it exist anymore?
What do you mean by the story?
The thing he
Oh, the book. I don't know whether somebody still actually got the article or what it was. Yeah, but whether it might be. Well, exactly, it might be in his archive of all his stuff, which is I don't know.
I think it's in Frank's.
Or I'm going to say Frank might have it. We'll have to ask Frank.
You tend to keep your own books. So Frank Halford still has the Mark book. So there was a documentary
he still
about.
has the 10 out of 10
Sorry,
mark.
I've seen it.
I don't know.
Is it in a documentary?
The Mark book does,
Yeah.
but Douglas's actual story.
Oh, the actual story, is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I
Douglas's
misunderstood.
story would
I
still
thought you meant the
be-
mark, yeah.
So we've got the book of the Mark.
Yeah, Douglas's story would be in his workbook, which he would have kept.
Yeah.
So I
haven't
I
seen
still
it.
have some of my workbooks from secondary school, but not many people do. But I've got a lot of stuff.
I've got a few school books, yeah.
We've moved around quite a lot, I think, over the years, all our stuff sort of. Mum was a great clearer outerer, especially of the attic.
Any other questions? No.
Yeah.
We've got one here.
Oh, right, sorry, Gary.
Will the death of Ed Victor affect the legacy in any way of how? the
I
estate
honestly
man-
don't know. The fact that he's literally only just died a couple of days ago, I don't know what's happening on that front, because obviously he was one of the trustees of the estate, and it's too soon to say
I know
anything's
it's new
happening.
news, but-
At Ed's office, Maggie Phillips has always looked after his business. She's been there for years.
She's been there
I
from.
think Maggie's retired though. But
Oh,
she
is
still
she?
comes back to do the
She
odd-
came
She's
to Towel
still
Day.
involved.
A couple of
She's
weeks
still
ago, she
involved.
came to the Towel Day thing
Yeah.
because we were doing the thing in the Waterstones, literally just across the road from their office,
Okay.
and she brought somebody from the office as well. So I assumed she was
She's
still
still
there.
involved, I think.
Yeah.
But whether it's how official it is, no, I don't know. So we shall see.
Anybody else want to take this opportunity? Okay, well you can probably find them.
Lady.
I'm ever so sorry. I don't know if it's a relevant question or not. A friend of mine is a big fan of Hitchhikers, and he keeps banging on about Kurt Vonnegut and how much there of an influence there was in that. Do you think there is much of an influence of the writings of Kurt Vonnegut? Was another right? Thank you. No,
Douglas did express a sort of, an agreement with the fact that there was an influence, because he didn't read a lot of science fiction. He said people kept giving him science fiction books saying, you should read this. He said, but he didn't really consider himself a science fiction author. He was writing satire or comedy mainly. And he said just all the stories he thought up tended to involve robots and spaceships. But he did. I know he did acknowledge Kurt Vonnegut as an influence. And who was the other one? Sheckley, Robert Sheckley. Actually, I think at one stage, he actually did get as far as discussing Robert Sheckley doing some work on Starship Titanic, I think. But I don't know why it didn't happen, but he got that far anyway. But he said, no, there was... I've got him on video talking about Isaac Asimov. He has some great ideas, but he didn't like the writing. He said it made his teeth itch.
That's the thing, I think, that's like I was saying earlier on, that Douglas, throughout a lot of this time, was just my big brother. And I think the likes of Kevin and probably Mike here, from a professional point of view, or from an actual hitchhiker's point of view, had far more connection really than I did at that stage. As I said, we became far more involved, sadly, after Douglas died. With the movie, with the radio shows, and obviously the memorial lectures, which hopefully will go on for a little bit longer. They seem to have been very popular, especially the 30th anniversary. That was something else to see all of them on stage. But sadly, we don't have Sue anymore. She's departed, who was great as Trillian.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what... Well, maybe we'll get a chance to ask him, but I don't know what Dirt's going to do for Trillian for the next radio show.
Don't know.
It'll have to be recast. Although I'm told that Sue's daughter Emily does a really neat impression.
Oh, right.
So you never know.
It's very strange, because when this idea came up about this sixth book, we actually met Owen, and a mum went up to him and said, "Do you know, I do not think this is a very good idea at all." And she let it be known that she didn't appreciate it.
Oh, no.
And then he gave me one of the books, and inside he's put, "Resistance is useless," apparently.
He's a lovely fellow, Owen.
He
Owen
is,
Colfer
yeah.
is... I took my son Liam over there when he was little. We went to meet Owen because he used to read the Artemis Fowl books. And we had no idea that there'd ever be a Hitchhiker connection. But we went and saw him at a bookshop signing. And thought, what a lovely fellow, we really like his work. So when he was announced, it was like a familiar person.
Yeah.
You know, oh, great, okay. I struggled a bit with the book, I'll be honest.
I haven't read it.
Anybody else read it?
The
A
best,
few,
way,
not
the best way
everyone.
of dealing with the sixth book is to get Simon Jones to read it to you, because he needed the audiobook.
The
So.
Simon Jones talking book of that is brilliant.
Otherwise, the physical book kept leaving my hands and heading towards the wall, which is harder to do with an audiobook.
It got close occasionally, but then every now and again there was a wrong-footed moment that you just think, oh, ouch, that's not Douglas.
I think it was so unique. I just don't think anybody could ever do it justice personally, but that's my own point of view.
Okay, so this is a sort of welcome to our guests of honour. They're here all weekend. For the two shy ones that didn't ask questions, you can always corner them in the bar and buy them a drink.
Oh, yes,
There's the if you baked anything for the Bake Off, Michael and Sue are judging the Bake Off upstairs next, and over there's going to be the sofa racing.